Hey guys, how are we doing? Crypto Insight UK here, bringing you back another video. So I've actually got a few things to talk to you guys about today, and we'll start with yesterday. Obviously, price was bleeding down, and all of a sudden, in my comments, it almost became consensus that the top was in, and that we're in a bear market. Yet just 2 days ago, on Friday, when Jerome Powell cut rates, it was consensus that we were starting an alt season. So I'm just saying that just in 2 days of price action, and yes, they have been pretty painful, relatively, the whole consensus of the market changed, and that this is what Bitcoin's done realistically on the daily. This is Bitcoin, and we can talk about structure and all this sort of stuff. And we're gonna maybe touch into that, but I want to talk about something a bit deeper than that and a bit more important, in my opinion. But this is ETH. Like, look at ETH. Like, it's at all-time highs. We're 10% away from all-time highs still. And it feels like, and people are calling for a top and saying that, look, the top's in and all that sort of stuff. But to start with, let's just talk on XRP, because I think it's XRP's time for this next rally. And I have called for it a few times and I haven't got that right so far. But if we just look structurally, we're in the range. We've not even swept the bottom of the range here. We swept the bottom of the range there. So this is what I would say the range was-ish. Let's say to here, swept the bottom of the range, came back in. Again, then sat below the bottom of the range. And then if we make the range our recent lows, which is here, then we haven't yet touched it. But then if we actually zoom out on a larger time frame, and I'll move that line back to where it was. In fact, I'll just draw that twice so we can actually get that accurately. If we go to the daily, I'll show you why this line is here. It was our first daily close after we pushed up into this range at 270, and we basically held that as support after setting a higher high here, and then obviously now holding a support. Looking to see if this daily RSI can cross bullish. I'd like to see a few days of green price action, and then potentially to see us move to the upside. And I'm going to get into a bit of a more important point in 1 second. I'm just going to finish this discussion with XRP first. So I've shown you ETH. I don't think ETH's got anything really to talk about one way or another. As you know, I've discussed using on the liquidity chart normally that there's potentially a 5-wave move to the upside. I still think that that's true. And so there might be some sort of correction here. We also have hit all-time highs for ETH. I did say that I think ETH will probably go to $5,000 and maybe break that first, and then I think we'll probably see a rotation into the ETH ecosystem and other ETH tokens start to pop off. Now, Bitcoin, there is liquidity for Bitcoin at 106. Whether it comes down to take that or not, I don't know. But again, that would be almost similar to XRP in a way, where it will be holding like our first significant high after quite a significant rally up. You could give an argument as to why Bitcoin might stall out in this area, like pull back into this area. Break of structure, essentially came back, retested that area as support now, and let's see what happens and what materializes over the next few days there. So why did I bring up Jackson Hole when we first started? Actually, I'll just finish off my XRP TA for you guys, because there's a little, and Bitcoin dominance, and then I'm going to talk about something I think is very important. And I think everyone should listen to what I'm about to say, and whether you agree with it or not. XRP ETH holding the weekly support that was previous resistance here, and it doesn't look like it on the daily, but if we take us to the weekly time frame, this was basically the range high of the Wyckoff accumulation that I think we started and then we've broken out of. We've basically so far held that as support, potentially looking for a bounce to continue on our next wave higher. XRP Bitcoin, this is on the weekly time frame. We are holding above previous support again, previous resistance, now potentially support. Looking to see if we can get the break that would break us out essentially of nearly 7 years, 6.5 years of resistance. See if we can muster the strength to do that. Take us down to the daily time frame, where it looks a little bit more exciting. Setting a higher low after holding this level here. Do you remember when we were in this level? I was like, look, we've got to break through this level. And when we were here, what I said was, we've made a range low. We'll probably sweep the lows, come up, potentially sweep the highs, come back to the 50, and then send off. And we've nearly done that. We didn't sweep the highs. We are holding that 50, and it is the resistance area, 50% of the range. That's what I mean when I say 50. Looking for the bullish cross here on the RSI and potentially to break this downtrend. Then that could signal that we're starting the next leg up. So that's everything I wanted to talk about for XRP, and now I want to get into this key point that I was going to discuss. Before Friday, everyone was like, look, we need to see rate cuts for the market to be bullish. On Friday, we got the rate cuts. The market was bullish. It really pumped for a few hours. It was fantastic. It's nice to see. And let's see if we can just take us to the 4 hour. I'll show you what happened on Friday. I think this was Friday for Bitcoin. Where's Friday for Bitcoin? It wasn't massive for Bitcoin, so maybe, oh yeah, here it was. This is Friday look for Bitcoin after the rate cuts were announced, so potential for rate cuts. He's not definitely said we're cutting rates, and then for ETH, this was ETH's candle. But he's not definitely said we're cutting rates, we said we might. But the point is, everyone was bullish on waiting for rate cuts, and then now we got the rate cut decision, and people were bullish, and I think rightly so, because it means looser monetary policy and essentially easier lending and borrowing, which essentially injects capital into markets, because there'll be a lot of people who, for example, companies might have want to expand and they can't afford it, and they want to take a loan from the bank, and the bank's risk parameters won't let them take the loan on 5%, but then they might on 4.5%. So they essentially create more capital for markets, as well as making capital easier to, like, essentially by making capital easier to borrow and lend. So that's how it affects markets. But then the other flip side of the decision is, does that mean that something's structurally wrong with the market because it's going to be the first time that they've had to change monetary policy to make it easier, so it would indicate a lack of growth? But the point I'm making here is, you can see that the narrative is always going to be able to be argued one way or another, and it obviously resides around price action. And some people then say, oh shit, no, there is something wrong, there must be a recession, that's why they're going to cut rates, and they haven't cut rates for so long, even though all of this bad stuff's been happening in the economy. They haven't cut rates, and now they have cut rates, so it must be way worse than it was. That's what's happening now. And I want to just take you to a thought process. Like, as much as all of that is important to take into consideration for short-term price action, the two things I want to make you remember are, one, this is Bitcoin on the weekly. Yes, okay, we're talking about a short-term trend, but this is Bitcoin on the weekly. Quite a clear uptrend, and nothing structurally broken as of right now. This is ETH on the weekly. Pretty much the same, pretty much a clear uptrend from realistically 2018. Yes, we made a low, but then we made a higher low and continued higher, and it's obviously not felt great. These are the biggest market caps in crypto. The similar, let's look at the S&P. Let's look at the S&P. This is the S&P. And you could say, yeah, look, we're overcooked. And I understand, again, there can be always two sides of the narrative. And this isn't my point right now. But markets clearly trend upwards over time. We can talk about debasement and that sort of thing. But the most important part, and this is what I want to really get into and dive into right now, is if you went back to my first cycle in 2017 and you said to me, in 2025, crypto is going to get regulatory clarity. They're going to, in the biggest financial economy in the world, start to use stablecoins for international trade, and those creating stablecoins, we're going to back it with US treasuries. And bearing in mind that stablecoins are something that people literally buy and sell crypto with, and you're going to use to participate in DeFi yield in the crypto space. And every single large bank around the world is rushing to get their fingers both in crypto in an investment sense, but also in the crypto space in terms of like broker dealer or some sort of institutional DeFi or ETFs. I would have ran around the room clapping my hands together, because it's almost better than anything I could have imagined. Now, fast forward to now, from 2017, you get yourself wrapped up in narrative day to day and forget that we're at $110,000 for Bitcoin. You forget that countries around the world are literally discussing crypto policies, having strategic crypto reserves, like Middle East forward-looking countries buying crypto for the sovereign wealth fund, the US creating regulatory clarity around crypto. You forget all these things, but these things are the foundation of a huge influx of capital to the point that we have never seen in crypto. Right now, the market cap of crypto, the whole market cap is 3.74 trillion. And everyone's getting worried about this little blip. And that doesn't mean that this little blip can't be more. It doesn't mean that we couldn't have something much deeper. At some point, I do think that will come. I don't think it is right now, but it doesn't mean we can't have a 20%. It doesn't mean we can't have a 50% correction in crypto. It doesn't mean we can't have 80%. And that would be obviously the short-term bear market. I don't think that comes now. As I said, I think we probably get into price discovery. But guys, you need to really understand that, like, this space is at a point that we've never been at before. It's at an inflection point. It's at a point where it goes from being a speculative asset to something that we might see utilized in the everyday financial system. And if that is the case, we're not saying it's definite yet, but it's looking more and more likely each day. And if we again compare it to 2017, it's a whole world apart from where we were in 2017. Everyone used to say in 2017 that it was the only use for crypto was for dark webs and privacy, and it's pretty much the opposite now. Like, we found that it's not actually that private because you can basically trace every transaction, and the dark web, like in terms of crypto purchases, is a very small percentage of what crypto is actually used for now. So my point is, what we're doing here is unlocking the floodgates for all the money in the world to be able to transact through crypto, hold crypto. And I don't think everyone understands that, or at least not to a level where it overtakes their emotion in the short term. It's very easy to get stuck in short-term sentiment when you want things to go up, but don't forget how far we've come in the crypto space. And that's not for us to sit here and be like, oh, we've finished, like the journey's over. But it is for us to sit here and say, look, anything that happens short term is an opportunity to buy, in my opinion. We're at that stage in the market, in this cyclical market, if we continue the cycles, and which I think we do. I'm not saying necessarily the 4-year, but I think we do around the loosening of monetary policy, or the debasement of currency, or influx of money print, or influx of money printing, etc. I think that cyclical nature of markets will probably stay, and also around elections in the US. But what I do think is that crypto is just trending upwards, and I think at some point it will go parabolic, whether it's the cryptos we hold or whether that's just because of stablecoin influx or whatever in the short term. But long term, we are adopting this technology. I think that's pretty clear. I think AI agents are probably going to use crypto. I think that in the future, it's much more easier to settle peer-to-peer with crypto, and I think people are realizing that, as in banks are realizing that, and they need to take a slice, so they've got to adopt, and they are. I think that national interests are going to move towards crypto. I think that we'll see more and more countries open their arms to people who work in crypto or hold crypto in the future, because it's essentially just a free influx of dollar-denominated capital to their society. It's what I think the UK should do. I think the UK should put like a 5% flat tax on withdrawals in the UK. Basically, make sure you can somehow KYC, zero knowledge proof KYC, to say that you're not a terrorist or money laundering or drug smuggling or whatever, but then you pay a 5% tax on withdrawals, but then you can come to the UK open arms. Because I think that would be massive for the economy. I think it would bring the option of $4 trillion at the minute, and if that increases to 10 trillion, straight into the economy for people to be spending it on businesses, etc., and buying assets in the UK as well. I think that's a good way for any country to do it. I think the 5% tax is about the only way you could do it on withdrawals, because I don't know how else you can efficiently tax crypto, because I think you could hide your assets if you wanted to long term. So there's no other way to say, oh, look, you're going to get this and that and capital gains on it or whatever, because you can just move like I have. You can just move. So I think that's about the only efficient way for a nation state to do that. But my point is, guys, one, I think crypto adoption is going to continue. Two, I think we've been playing in the baby leagues in terms of crypto capital in crypto, even though it is still quite a lot. It's getting to become quite a lot now. And three, I think that the people who have been in crypto for a long time and have started to generate capital and understand it are going to have a significant space in our future because of 1 and 2. And countries are waking up to it now. So I think that if you're starting to get too upset about short-term price action, then maybe turn your PC off or just put some limit orders in and hit buy. But realistically, I've got no more to say than I just think that that we go up in crypto. And I don't know whether that is we go up today or tomorrow. We use TA to give us best risk to reward opportunities based on historic patterns as to where to enter positions. We're still in our XRP long. I am just in my ETH Classic long, literally just. It probably gets stopped out today, but my XRP long's fine. It's looking pretty good actually. So there isn't really much to fret about in the long term. In the short term, it's anybody's game, anybody's guess. We are a bit overcooked on the S&P, for example. I do think that the S&P at some point will correct, but as soon as you go into price discovery, it's anybody's guess as to when that correction comes in. And this thing can like keep continuing up a lot higher should it need to. Like we've got price discovery here, and yeah, we do have like a short-term correction, but essentially just chop upwards. We could be in something like that. I don't know. I haven't looked too much at the S&P, but the point is like when any asset goes into price discovery, let's look at Bitcoin and previous cycles, or even this cycle. Well, it was Bitcoin's all-time high, like 69K. So we didn't break it. Oh, 72. Did we get to? Where was it? Yeah, here. Yeah, we did. Maybe ETH's going to do something like this. I don't know. But we chopped around after hitting all-time highs, and then we actually started sending it. At some point, I think that is going to happen for crypto generally, and I think that's going to continue for altcoins soon. This is hopefully what is coming for XRP now. I think the XRP has been leading the altcoins this cycle. It chopped into all-time highs, and then it's been chopping since. Then we set a new high, and now we're chopping again. And I think the next phase is expansion. And looking at Bitcoin dominance, I don't think I actually did check on this, did I? As Bitcoin dominance is something we've been discussing quite a lot. I'm going to take us the hourly just to finish this. But I hope you understood the point of this. The point of this video is I'm going to take this yellow drawing off for a second. Basically, in the newsletter on Saturday, I discussed as potentially being in this white box. We've made this ascending channel, like a continuation pattern, in my opinion. We started to push down. We had a first little stop out, and then after that, we continued down. The same here. And then we had a little bit of a bounce up. And then the thing I couldn't work out about this bounce up is, does it come back into this area of like chop and just sweep that high and then continue down? Or does it come into like these areas of resistance or like support, like now flip as resistance because we're below, and then bounce off them? And that's what I couldn't work out. And looking at where we are now, has it swept the high? And is that enough? Like if we look here, look, has it swept the high, and is that enough? Or what is it because it's waiting to hit this resistance here? So let's have a look. Has it swept the high? Is that enough? Or is it going to backtest that resistance? The answer to that question is I don't know, but the next stage after that is again another kaplunk down, and that's why I've got this yellow drawing on. That's what I was trying to show everybody, like that. And that's what I'm basically waiting for now, to see what the answer to that question is. And I do think that is going to continue, and I think that is what's going to happen next. And basically, let's see what happens. But try and zoom out when you start to feel a bit stressed, and especially when the consensus of the market is flip-flopping. Everyone's emotional one way or another. Everyone's euphoric on Friday, and everyone's depressed on Sunday / Monday. It gets to me too. I'm not going to say it doesn't. I sometimes have to check myself. I find exercise pretty good to help. I have to look at the charts all the time. It's my job, like, to report to you guys, because that's what I think I'm here for, to help. Like, at least for now, it's my role in society is to try and help people with the experience that I've had. So with all that being said, I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. If you did, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and share it with a friend. If you do want to trade leverage, obviously be careful, but I've got links to MEXC and WEX in the description below. Please do check out my free weekly newsletter. I go in depth on some thesis around XRP this week, and a few other things as well, including the total market cap of crypto and Bitcoin dominance. See you in the next one.